Hey everybody, and welcome back to Ready Steady Play. Today we're talking about Space Station Phoenix, which is designed by Gabriel J. Kahn and published by Rio Grande Games. And spoiler alert, I think some of you might really like this game. I've got the game set up on the table right here. I've spent some time setting this game up. It does take a little while to set up. It's also a bit of a table hog, as you can see, but it's all set up and it is ready to go. As I said, it's designed by Gabriel J. Kahn, and the artists are Martin Hoffman and Klaus Steffen. It is published by Rio Grande Games, and this is not a review copy. I bought this myself. It's a 2 to 4 player competitive game, and BGG says this is best at 3, and from my play of the game, I would agree with them. This is a competitive action selection, resource management combo building game. Now, there is some lore, some story about what's going on here. We are alien races. There are, in fact, 4 different kinds of aliens living in this alien union. Teal aliens, the pink aliens, the brown aliens, and the gold aliens. There's also these humans up here. I don't know how the humans got up into the alien colony, but and as you can see, this is clearly a spaceman, obviously. And they live up there with the aliens too. In the game, what you're doing is you are an alien fleet that has arrived in orbit of Earth. And a lot of this is conjecture, by the way, because actually the game doesn't really give you any of the lore in the rulebook. But when I was taught the game by my friend Trackmaster, he explained all the lore, which I can only assume he's extrapolated from the components and the mechanisms of the game itself. So in this game, you are a fleet of alien spaceships that are represented by these cards here, and you've shown up in the orbit of Earth, and your plan is to orbit around the Earth and monitor it, and work with the other aliens to collect data on the humans. But, of course, you need somewhere to live, you need a space station to conduct your operations, and so what you're going to be doing is you are going to be dismantling the spaceships that you arrived here in into pieces, and you're going to use those pieces to build a space station out from your player board by collecting these sectors here on the table and connecting them up around your player board here. And then as you do that, you can move aliens from the population pools into your space station and unlock benefits. Of course, there is also expeditions to Earth, and that's how you're going to get humans onto your spaceship. Humans are a bit like the aliens, except that they are wild. They can live anywhere and do anything, because it doesn't matter what section of the space station they're in, they still can't breathe, so they have to keep their spacesuit on. And you can collect humans by going on expeditions to Earth, where you'll find food and water, valuable resources, as well as humans. And then you'll have to pay the humans with food and water, and also precious metal, in order to come and live on your spaceship, where they will work and never be allowed to return home to Earth. We will continue to observe the Earth and collect aliens and humans on our spaceship until several criteria are met. Either someone gets around this scoring track up here, so you get around the scoring track around the outside of the diplomacy board here and you score 40 points. The game will also end when someone completely builds their space station. You'll start with this hub in the center, and you can connect 3 sectors to each side of the hub: a small sector, a medium sector, and eventually a large sector. And if you complete 3 sectors on all 3 sides of your hub, then you will immediately end the game. Actually, no, you won't. You'll end the game, and then every other player will get another turn, and then the game will be over. All of the end conditions work this way. And if there are 4 aliens left from amongst the 4 pools, 4 or fewer aliens, that also ends the game. So there's a timing element, as players may be working towards one of these end game conditions, and you're never quite sure when the game is going to end or what turn is going to be your last, unless you're the one that triggers the end game. Because if you trigger it on your turn, and then your turn at the end of your turn, that was your last turn, you won't get another one. Everyone else will get one more, the game will end, and we'll go to end game scoring. But during the game, you're going to, on your turn, take an action. Just one simple action, and you're going to purchase actions according to these cards. You start with 5 cards in front of you. You're going to draft some more cards at the beginning of your game. These all take the form of these alien spaceships here, and they're going to go out in front of your player area. And all of the cards in this deck are upgraded versions of the actions that you start with. So you see you've got your basic disassemble action here, and this is going to give away some of the game's mechanisms in a minute, but this is the disassemble action, the basic one that the blue player starts with. And at the beginning of the game, you might draft a slightly more advanced version of that, which is this one here. And so every player is going to get 4 cards to draft at the start, so you start with a total of 8 cards. And then you will have these cards out in front of you, and each one represents the different actions available in the game. So you've got this disassemble action, which I'll talk about a bit later. You've got construction action, which allows you to build these sections of your space station. You've got here, this is the expedition. The expedition card allows you to go on expeditions down to Earth, where you'll find food and water and metal and potentially humans to come and work for you. There's also this trading action here, which lets you trade goods for different goods at a space market. The final action is this diplomacy action here, which allows you to move up these diplomacy tracks that you can see in the background. And so on your turn, what you'll do is you'll pay valuable crystal resources that you've accumulated to take these different actions, and you'll put them out on the cards, and then you get to do the action. If you put it onto your own card, you'll pay a discounted cost. If you put it onto other players' cards, you'll have to pay the full cost, some of which goes to that player. However, you can take an action on any ship around the player area that doesn't have crystals on it. So when you take the action, you put the crystals on, and then they remain there, blocking that position until the player whose ship it is takes an income phase. And during an income phase, you're going to get more crystals and take all the crystals back from the action spaces, thus freeing them all up again for someone else to come and steal the ship that you wanted to use. And that's your turn. It's either take an action on a ship, or it's take an income phase, which gives you more crystals to take more actions with. The ships themselves have these 5 different actions on them. The construction ship is build the sectors of the ship. The expedition allows you to go to Earth, and when you take the expedition, you're just going to roll a number of these dice here, which have either water, food, metal, or humans on them. So water, food, and metal are the 3 resources that aren't crystals. And crystals are only really used to pay for actions, whereas these 3 are used for different things. Food and water is used to entice aliens onto your planet. So you have up here the alien population, and this has been randomly seeded during setup. So for a 3-player game like we've got set up here, we've got 70 aliens out here drawn from a bag at random. And so there's slightly more gold aliens than anything else, and we actually have a slightly lower population of blue aliens. And once they run out, they're gone, and you'll find out why that's super important in just a minute. But you can spend water and food to bring them onto your space station. Metal is used for building the sectors in your space station. So you'll buy these tiles here, these valuable space station tiles, using metal. There's a cost right up here. This one costs 7. The final face of the expedition die is the human symbol. And if you roll this, you can purchase a human from Earth to come and live on your ship. Well, actually, you entice him by spending resources. A food, a water, and a metal brings the human onto your ship. If you choose not to bring the human onto your ship, instead you'll get a victory point, advancing up the track here and progressing towards the end of the game as well. Most of your points are going to come from endgame scoring, actually, in this, but you will get points from this track as well. So that's the expedition action. There's also this trade action, which just gives you this little trade situation here. So the trade action gives you access to this trade menu, where you can spend a food and a water to purchase an alien. You could spend a food, a water, and a crystal to purchase a gold alien. So this is one of the colored, this is a gold one. You can spend 2 of any resource for 1 of any other. And you can spend 3 crystals to purchase 1 of any resource as well. So the trade action will give you access to a number of trades on this menu here. The final action is the diplomacy action, which lets you advance up this track here with your token. And each of the tracks represents one of the other 4 actions. So the dismantle action is here, this is construct, this is trade, and this is exploration. And what this track does is it's got a cost here to advance, so you spend some crystals to go up here, but then it's got rewards shown in the middle here. And as you advance up this track, what's going to happen is whenever somebody takes those actions, you're going to get some kind of reward. So when you are top of the track, you're going to be able to select the reward in the row you're currently in. So for green here, if someone took the construction action, green could have a victory point. Red will also get something. Red can take whatever's below them on the track. Because they're in second place, they can't take what they're next to. So no two crystals for red, but red can have a single crystal. Blue also gets to take whatever's below them on the track, but because that's nothing, they won't get anything. So that's the diplomacy track. Eventually you can get up to the top here, and there's a 2x2 multiplier, which is quite strong. It means you can take 2 of the things below you. So that's pretty powerful, but there is no endgame scoring to advance on this track. Just these points here that you can take during the game. So the final action is this dismantle action here. And what this is it allows you to dismantle the ships that are the actions. So what we've got here is the dismantle ship itself. Now it can't dismantle itself, but you could dismantle it using a different dismantle ship. And when you do, you'll get 6 metal, which is the value shown in the top center. So you'll dismantle this, and then you'll get to use that metal to buy bits of your station and attach them to your space station. And that's the primary way of getting metal. You could also get it from these dice for the human exploration, but you're not probably going to get enough. Like these big sections up here, they cost like 12 to 16, so they're very expensive to build the final section. And you're going to want to do that because at the end of the game, you're going to score points for all of these things, and the leftmost there is each section of the ship that you've built. So 4 points for the little ones, and then 6 and 10 for the middle and the end ones. You're also going to get 2 points for every alien and human that's come to live on your space station, and I'll explain how that works in just a minute. There's also a majority, so the third scoring condition there at endgame is whoever has the most blue aliens gets 10 points, second place gets 5, and this is scored for all 4 alien types as well as the humans. At the end, you're also going to have unlocked endgame scoring conditions on your space station, and that's what that fourth symbol represents there. It's endgame conditions that you've unlocked on your space station that only apply to you. And finally, there's an exchange rate of resources. 5 of anything for 1, or 20 crystals for 1. It's not a very good exchange rate, so I wouldn't rely on that for big endgame scoring. But the real sort of caveat here are these sections here, because I have explained how to build them and that you can move aliens into them. There is, on each of these spaceship sections, a track. And that's where the aliens come to live. So when you build this in your space station, you can see this is a 6-space track. And the pink aliens will come to live on it, and you can unlock bonuses underneath. And what this track is showing you is if you have 2 pink aliens in here, in every income phase you're going to get an extra crystal. If you have 3, you're going to get an extra crystal and a victory point. And if you fill up all 6 spots, that's 3 crystals and a victory point every time you take income. These tracks get increasingly interesting as you look around and see all the different options in place. You can see here that what we've got here is the first space is 2 gems for the income phase, but the second space is that every time you take a human or a Terran exploration action, the one that lets you go down to Earth and throw a bunch of dice and find some random rewards, you can also spend 4 crystals one time to purchase a human. So that gets you sort of enhanced version of that action. Here we see that if you have this 3rd tier blue section, and you have 1 blue alien living here, you unlock this red power, which is every time you dismantle a ship, you're going to get 3 metal extra, in addition to what you would normally get. So there's all kinds of things to unlock here, and some of them have little instant bonuses as well. This one here says, immediately when you build it, 5 victory points. And then it's also got some tracks to unlock there as well. And the last one I'll show you here is this guy, because he's got the endgame scoring on him. So this one says, if you've put 2 aliens on this tile, you've unlocked this purple scoring condition, which is at the end of the game, for every brown alien on your spaceship, a victory point. And that's in addition to the 2 victory points you're going to get for those anyway. So, as you can see, there's a potential of 9 tiles here, and as you put the tiles into your ship, you're unlocking the potential for extra income, for extra scoring condition, for enhanced actions, and then you're filling those up with aliens in order to unlock those abilities. And that's the game. Up front, you've got nothing in your spaceship, so all of the opportunities are open to you. But as people claim these tiles and take them away and take these aliens away as well, and this is the kicker about these aliens, because if someone buys all the blue aliens to put into the blue sections on their ship, might not be enough left for you to buy and fill up the sections that you wanted to fill up. And then you can't unlock the bonuses you wanted. And that's just really upsetting. There are a whole bunch of basic hubs here. Everyone's going to draft a different hub at the beginning of the game. This is going to give you different asymmetrical starting resources, starting conditions, as well as endgame scoring abilities and things like that. And once you're done with the basic hubs, you can move on to the advanced hubs, which offer you game-breaking powers if you can figure out how to make use of them and score with them. So I'd say a pretty fair estimate of time to play the game is about 45 minutes per player. We played it at 3. It took about 3 hours, but 2 of us hadn't played before, and that included a teach. It's actually much more teachable than the rulebook. The rulebook's pretty dense and has an awful lot of examples, but actually once you know how to play it, it's pretty straightforward. The real challenge, I think, from this comes from just the sheer diversity of options that are open to you at the beginning of the game. There are an awful lot of possibilities here, and you're going to be racing with people to get the tiles that you want, to get the aliens that you want as well, and to sort of try to figure out how to build these combos together. And so at the beginning of the game, it's quite overwhelming. And then as the game goes on, as the spaceships are destroyed, the options diminish and the opportunities diminish, and it suddenly becomes a lot easier and quicker to play. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. The game sort of escalates, or the game gathers pace as it goes, which is quite nice, actually. It's a very deterministic game. There's very little luck. Pretty much all the luck is these dice, and I'm not going to lie, there is potential here. You know, if you go on a big exploration at the end of the game and you're throwing like 10 dice, and you've got 6 of them that you can keep, and you're looking for humans, and you don't throw a single human. I just managed to do that. You don't throw a single human result, and you wanted to just get all those points. That can be really annoying. But that's pretty much the only element of luck in the game. Everything else is deterministic, and so you can make a big plan. It's just that people are going to get in the way of that plan by using the ships that you want to use, and by taking the pieces that you want to use, and taking the aliens you want to use. But otherwise the strategy's all there, which is why it can be quite slow at the beginning, as people are trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to make the points in the game. And ideally what you want to do is duplicate those effects, you know, so you want to have things that reward you for having brown aliens. You want to try and get as many of those as possible. Interestingly, there's actually quite a lot of these sectors in the box. You always put out 1 per player of each type. So there's 3 large brown ones, 3 medium brown ones, and 3 small brown ones. And you have to build these out in order, you know. So when you're building out from your hub, you put the small brown one down, and then you can connect the medium brown one and then the large brown one. What's interesting is that you only ever put out 1 per player. So, you know, you're probably not going to get all the section pieces that you want. And you've got to prioritize which ones you're going to go for, especially because obviously the metal is quite hard to come by, and you have to start destroying your action spaces if you want to get that metal efficiently. But you can see there's actually 6 sections per color per size. So there's an enormous number of, this is just the extra pink sections here. So enormous amount of variety there in those sections. And actually, interestingly, just in the random selection I've put out here, there's only 1 with an endgame scoring bonus on it. So that's going to make for a very different kind of game than if there were a lot of different opportunities for endgame scoring on these tiles. Most of the hubs have these endgame scoring conditions on them as well, but not all of them. So sometimes they won't. All the basic ones do, and I think that's because it gives you quite a sort of a good idea about how to sort of where to start going at the start of the game. You know, if you're like, okay, humans get me points, figure out how to get humans now. You know, that's a nice sort of lead. But some of the advanced ones don't, or they offer you these sort of odd game-breaking mechanisms there. You can see one here that doesn't have that. And they all have different incomes and all manner of things. So at its heart, it's this action selection resource management game, because you're paying crystals to go out and take these actions, and you're potentially paying crystals to other players, and So when your turn comes around, you have enough crystals, or else you're going to have to take an income phase and you get a bunch of crystals back. You can start taking actions again, and that also clears off all of your ships as well if you want to start taking those actions again. The income phase can do more. You know, if you get these sections here, you might get extra bonus income. Typically, your income is 1 crystal per ship you have left, so you want to try to build some income like this here. You see this section will give you a crystal for having an alien in the first position, so you need to do a bit of that before you start dismantling all the ships you rode in on, or else you're going to take income and not get any crystals, and then you're going to be really in trouble. So you sort of have to build this engine up a little bit, but then you can see if you get 5 aliens in here, you'll get an extra income step, which is you can spend 6 crystals for a human. So there are some options here. The other thing you can actually do, which is kind of interesting, is you can spend crystals during the income phase to reorganize the aliens on your ship. So if you're like, I don't like these tracks that I've filled up with aliens, I want to move them to a new section I've built, or a different section. You can do that. And towards the end of the game, that can also help you redistribute aliens that you were using for income bonuses to endgame scoring bonuses and things like that, which is, you know, an interesting consideration as well. But generally speaking, there's not a lot going on in the income phase. This is a game really about drafting tracks, right? You're looking for the combos on these tracks, and you're trying to get the tracks, and you're trying to prioritize which tracks do you fill up. You can also go and use these diplomacy tracks as well to get more bonuses between turns, and as you advance up here, you know, you're going to unlock these bonuses when other people take actions. But primarily, it's these tracks here. You know, this is like a game of acquire the track and then fill up the track. And I'm calling it a track as a bit of a joke, really, because it's, you know, once it's in your ship, you're the only one that can use it, except you still need to get the aliens, and someone else could buy all those aliens and then fill up and take away your ability to complete that track. I mean, it's not completely impossible, because you've got wild gold aliens and wild humans as well. So you can pretty much always fill up a track if you put your mind to it, but these are just more expensive than these other ones over here, which are cheaper to acquire. But ultimately, you've got to be into the idea of looking for the combos on these tiles and then mashing those combos up on your player board as well to reach ever greater efficiencies. Because ultimately, it's kind of a race game. It's a race game to this end game condition, and you want to end the game on your terms when you're ready and when you have the highest score. So, you know, it's if you let other people get too far ahead, or their ships, their combos are more efficient and they're getting efficiencies out of that, and they're ending the game before you're ready, then that's something that you have to be careful of. But it does feel like, I might have made it sound like there's maybe more player interaction in the game than it feels like. When you're playing the game, it's much more like sort of heads down, sort of looking for actions, taking actions. There is quite a lot of subtle player interaction in this game. Obviously, you can use each other's ships, you can give each other crystals. That's interesting. All of these are going to trigger off different player actions. Are you going to take an action that's going to give someone else a bonus? That's, you know, I don't think you have much control over that. You're going to need to take the actions you're going to want to take. But, you know, you might take them in a suboptimal order because you want to get onto one of these ships before someone else uses it, you know. And then you're going to hope that people aren't going to take the tiles that you want, you know, which again it's interesting. Like, it is interesting, but there's not. And the other thing is the pools of aliens, you know, like what are other people collecting? Obviously there's this majority thing going on, like do I have the most blue aliens? Do I have the most gold aliens? That's important for in-game scoring as well. So those are all interesting things, but they're so there's a lot of interesting timing considerations and in-game scoring considerations throughout the game, but it is primarily a game of sort of head down system management. You know, and resource management. I need more food and more water so that when I take this trade action, I can buy these 3 aliens, which I need to unlock this, and I want to do that before my next income phase. So that will be more optimal. You know, it does feel like very systematic when you're going through it. And there's not like direct player interaction. There's no trading. There's no negotiation. You can't attack other people or anything like that. So all of the player interaction is observing what other people are doing and trying to predict it so that you don't miss out on something that you need or want. And, you know, but for what it's worth, insofar as these sort of subtle Euro player interactions go, there's a fair amount of it here. So I played this at 3, and it probably took about, like I said, it probably took about 3 hours. It didn't overstay its welcome. We all enjoyed it. It was well received. I think that there is in the there is in the rule book a system with these paying for. So you've got to pay for these action cards, right? And so you've got here someone's construction action, and that's going to cost 4 gems if they use it, and it's going to cost 5 gems if someone else uses it, and they pay 1 gem to the owner of the card. And so when you take that action, you put your little guy out on it to show that you've done the action, and then you can put your gems on it as well. And there's not really any need to put this token on the card because it doesn't have any effect, and next turn you're just going to move it. And once you put the gems out on the card, then you know that the action's blocked and it can't be used again until the owner takes an income phase and removes those gems. So those gems have no further purpose other than to mark the card as blocked. And once this goes away, it's irrelevant. And it says in the rulebook that once you're more familiar with the game, you can stop using these. And actually, they're pretty much completely redundant. Like, the other thing it says is that, if you've got one of the gems that's a higher value, for example, this clear one is 5 gems, and so if you're going to pop that out here, you want to make change in the quickest way possible. So we don't need to change that into 5 and then give the gems to someone else. You can just go ahead and put that out there and then grab a 1 here and give it to the owner of that ship. And that's because actually the turns can be pretty clip, and one of the things that takes the longest is trading in the gems. Like, I don't know why the admin of the gems takes so long. I also don't know why they kind of decided on these funny colors, with clear being 5 and purple being 10 or 20, and the orange ones are just 1s. But yeah, the gem admin is like strangely slows the game down in a really strange way. That's kind of futzy, and I wish there had been a better system for that. But for what it's worth, it's not the end of the world. The other thing though is the income step. Like, if the income step is it feels a bit outdated. It feels a little bit like Miss a Turn. I wish that they'd come up with a bit more going on in the income step. I like that there's an action in there, but I wish there was more. It makes me pine for the Luke Laurie games like Dwellings of Eldervale or Whistle Stop Mountain or Cryo, where when you recall all your workers, then you can activate a tableau or something like that. So these sort of administrative phases don't feel so much like empty time. And the amount of income steps you're going to take is going to be very dependent on your engine. You can build an engine where you're going to be taking very few income steps, but you can also build an engine where you're taking them all the time, and that's fine. It just means you're going to sort of have these miss a turn steps a lot more often, which is a real shame. Having said all of that, I do think there's a real appeal to this game. It does feel really tight, and I think that there is a compelling element of construction to this puzzle, and I think if you like combo sort of builders and action selection and resource management, I think this game is going to be something that's a little bit different and a little bit interesting. It does feel different, because I was going to go on to say, I think if you like these other games, you'll like this one, but actually I kind of struggled to make a list. The one that sprung to mind was Tapestry, and that's because it's got 4 tracks. People are competing on the tracks. Here, you're not really competing on the tracks in the same way, because the communal tracks are not really competitions. I mean, there is obviously an advantage to being in front, and, that advantage is diminished when you're not in front anymore. But there's no endgame scoring here or anything like that, and there's not really anything that you can grab and take away from other people, like in Tapestry. But it's just something about the sort of the calculations around filling in the spots on the sectors and around the timing considerations. Like, Tapestry is a game where there's a lot of timing considerations, because you're looking at how everyone is advancing and when they can advance and things like that. And in this game as well, you're looking at what everyone else is doing. You're trying to work out how many points they're scoring, when they're going to end the game, or what kind of end game condition are they driving towards, all these kinds of things. So I think if you like that game, you'll probably really like this. And I think that if you like sort of games where you're optimizing and you've got all these different choices and things like that, you'll really like this as well. So I do think that there is a definite sort of demographic for this game. I think it's a really solid example of a Euro game. I'm not sure if I'm gonna... And the art, I wanted to mention the art as well. I think that the art's really neat. The spaceship sections are fit together in a satisfying way. The art and the cards, the iconography is all very good. Once I sort of got my head around the iconography and everything, it came together really, really well. You know, for a game with lots of unique abilities and things like that. There are really good player aids as well. Everything is coded. All the information is there. So we didn't really have any questions when we were playing the game, which was really great, given how many different bits there are in the game as well. So that was really good. I really like that. But I don't know if it will stay in my collection. And I think that's just because the kind of group that I would get around the table for this, 3 players who I'd want to be quite familiar with the hobby, I don't think this would be my first choice to play with them. And that's a personal opinion. I think that there's just not quite enough sort of direct player interaction here. Having said that, I mean, for me, but having said that, like if someone was excited to play this, if they wanted to get it to the table, then I would be more than happy to play it. I don't regret my time with it. I mean, the one thing I would mention as well, actually, just at the end here, is that the setup and teardown is a bit of a bear. The setup in particular is a bit of a bear. It's also quite a table hog. It doesn't really get less of a table hog as the game... Well, maybe a little bit less of a table hog as the game goes on, but... I mean, there are worse games as well. And the board, the pieces are very modular, so you can lay it out in a way that suits you and is convenient. So it's quite flexible, albeit big and chunky with lots of pieces going on. And I think some of the in-game scoring can be a bit opaque as well. I mean, obviously the conditions I showed you are pretty straightforward, but once you're trying to count up everyone's pieces, work out how many they've got, keep track of the points scored during the game and everything, you can lose sight of who's winning, even though it's all telegraphed. And sometimes, you know, if you're the kind of player that wants to stop and work that out, then that can slow the game down a bit. But yeah, overall, certainly definitely happy to play it. So yeah, I would tend to say things at this stage like, it's not staying in my collection, because I'll pull this other game out, which I prefer, or this other game that I like that does something similar, but better. But I haven't actually got any good examples for this one, because the game does feel quite unique. I mean, all the mechanisms feel quite familiar, but the way they are put together in this game, the way they work together, particularly with the diminishing action spaces and the way you can use other people's action spaces, it all feels quite like a unique combination of familiar ingredients, which I do think makes it quite an appealing game. And like I said, for me, it's just not quite my favorite flavor, but I think a lot of people will get a lot of enjoyment out of this game. So if you can go out and find a copy, if you think that sounds like something you might like to play, or if you know someone that's got it, I definitely recommend checking it out. So that's going to wrap up the review of Space Station Phoenix. And if you liked this review, if you found it helpful, please do leave a like down below or a comment down below. And now I'm going to roll the credits for the Patreons, without whom this content would not be happening. So make sure that you appreciate them for supporting the show and helping us bring this content to you. And you can always support the show by checking out the Patreon website. And if that's not possible for you, that's totally okay. You can always leave a like and a comment, and tell a friend about this useful review if you think they might be interested in Space Station Phoenix. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.